being targeted by Israeli forces in Gaza, or are they victims of crossfires in the war?
I think it's a given that journalists are being targeted in Gaza. It's directly, intentionally targeted. Yes, they are being murdered and assassinated. Yeah.
Will investigating Israel over this attack prove helpful at this stage as calls for this have been made? Or we will already know from credible reporting what exactly is taking place in Gaza?
Well, Israel must be held accountable, whether we know or not. It is important that an independent investigation by international bodies take place. It is absolutely important that Israel is taken to court and has to stand trial. And when I say Israel, I'm talking about the IOF. I'm talking about Benjamin Netanyahu and all those who are concerned. So yes, it is important. We cannot presume. We do know they are being targeted because when it's no longer, it wasn't the double tap that killed the 5 journalists at NASA Hospital. It was 4. So why are you striking a hospital 4 times? For a start, striking a hospital is illegal, is against international law, and then you do it 4 times, and then you do it at a time when you know journalists and first aiders are there. No, we know that it is targeted. Journalists have been going to war zones for decades. This is the highest number of journalists that has ever been killed in a conflict. Highest, highest. So that tells you something. That speaks to the intention. That speaks to the deletion. That speaks to the targeting. So yes, we know, but that still doesn't mean Israel shouldn't be held accountable. Indeed, it is because Israel continues to get away with all these atrocities, because Israel continues to get away with killing children, killing women, killing civilian men, killing first aid workers, killing doctors, bombing hospitals, museums, universities, school. It is precisely because of all the impunity. In the last almost 8 decades, let's be frank, that Israel continues to do this and is now actually pivoting to killing genocide and to genociding journalists along with them.
Who are these journalists from this recent attack? What is known of the legacy they'll leave behind in terms of their dedication to the reporting and the contributions to the media community in Gaza?
I mean, it's not even every journalist matters. Every single journalist. So we can't even name all of them because there are over 250 of them, right? Every single one of them. And here's the thing, this is what annoys me, is that when your country is being bombarded with more bombs, with more ammunition than was dropped during the Vietnam War, you have to think to yourself, what are people left to do? So you're an educated young woman or man, your country's been bombed. All you hear all day are drones and bombs, and they're starving you. And you hear the country that is occupying your land actually dehumanizing you. What is journalism if not journaling? Which means eyewitness actually writing, storytelling, and collecting and writing, recording what is happening. So every single journalist actually matters. Every Gazan Palestinian journalist actually matters. Every Gazan journalist that has been killed matters. It is not just about Mariam, who was the photojournalist, or Anaz. It is about every single one of them, and it keeps going up. I think 2 others were killed yesterday. Indeed, the numbers are so varied now because, as we know, many Gazans are under the rubble, whom are yet to be counted as part of the dead because of Israel's genocidal conflict. So therefore, we will never know how many journalists are actually also under the rubble, because journalists are civilians as well. They're just doing their work. We'll never know until the day Israel stops its just atrocities. It's murdering.
Press freedom and rights advocacy groups have expressed outrage over Israel's continuation of killing of journalists in Gaza. But what can actually be done by these groups? How much power do they yield?
It's a good question. I think it's not about the power of one, which is also why AJAC was created. It's about the power of the collective. Um, I get really annoyed by people who say, well, there's no point. Donald Trump is just going to do what he wants, because he's friends with Benjamin Netanyahu and he supports Israel. There is every single point. I want people to remember that. I want people to remember that every word of condemnation counts. Repeat it as 100 times, a million times. It matters. The repetition is how we train children. So therefore, if we want to change the world, we have to repeat or at least condemn what we don't agree with and keep repeating the same condemnation over and over and over and over again. And eventually it does change the world. Now, here's the thing. All the bodies, I interviewed the president of IFJ just a couple of weeks ago on my show. And, she even said that, look, one of the things that we're doing is we're working with the United Nations to actually put out some sort of resolution that actually addresses the killing of journalism. So it's not just something that's part of, it's against international law to actually make that illegal. So every single condemnation by every single body matters because it's not about single voice, it's about everybody's voice.
This killing of journalists, over 270 journalists have been counted and members of the media working in Gaza since October 2023. What will this mean then for Palestinians who are enduring the siege and bombardment in Gaza, their stories, their realities, if the media continues to be targeted in these ways and there's a possible pullback by journalists who fear for their lives?
Indeed, we began to see that. We began to see journalists say, look, there's no point. I'm just going to focus on my family. The stories have started to come out. And this is exactly what Israel wants. And we mustn't allow this. This is why we must continue to stand steadfastly. We mustn't get tired of standing by our, colleagues in Gaza. Indeed, we mustn't get tired of standing by Palestinians because what Israel wants is to silence the storyteller. What Israel wants is to silence the eyewitness. And that is what Israel will get every time a journalist says, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. No, that is not their right to do so, but we know that it's because they have been bullied into doing so. And that's what we mustn't allow to happen.
As people stand up against this, we've seen support for Gaza is also being garnered from different parts of the world. Protests and rallies were held in solidarity in Kenya, in South Africa. There's a delegation we were speaking to that has gathered some food aid to take there via sail. And protests were held in Tel Aviv 2 weeks ago and so on. What message do you think this sends?
Well, it sends a message to global leaders. Look, let's remember next week, I think it's the 9th, I'm not sure if that's Monday or Tuesday. Next week, September 9th, the General Assembly is going to hold at the UN. That General Assembly is possibly one of the most important General Assemblies right now, right, in the last 2 years, at least perhaps even in the last 5 years, simply because we have heard the likes of France and Britain and Canada and all those other countries, all the countries who were United States allies, all of them are now standing alone saying, look, or at least some of them are saying, look, we are going to be recognizing a Palestinian state. Now, most people would say, well, that doesn't necessarily stop the genocide. No, it doesn't. But what it does is it's symbolic. It gives credit to the fact that there is a Palestinian state. It solidifies the existence of a Palestinian state. Not that the Palestinians needed anybody to legitimize their existence. But alas, we have to go through the motions. And because you have to go through the motions, all of this matters. So we're looking at what's going to happen next week. The question is, will they have the courage, the guts, the boldness, to actually stand against the almighty America, who has continued to veto resolution after resolution after resolution? Therefore, Israel is allowed to actually ignore every single resolution that's voted against Israel. So next week is what I'm looking forward to. Next week is what you must all be looking forward to. Next week, Monday, like I said, next week, 9th, September 9th, is critically one of the most important days. And we do desperately pray, irrespective of whether you're into religion or you're not, like I am. You pray with everything you've got in your heart that resolution, that when it comes, because the UNSC is important. It's the one that laws it over everybody. And then beyond that is America. If members of the UN Security Council vote in line and say, yes, we recognize the state of Palestine, it takes us further legally as well as morally.
What do these recent deaths mean for media agencies and whether or not they'll be able to sustain themselves in continuing to do their work? And then generally the uptake of new, younger journalists, the new generation of journalists into the profession, particularly those media agencies focused on the Middle East and Sahel regions?
Well, yeah, and again, you ask a good question. You know, what is going to happen now for journalists, whether they'll have the courage to go out and report from war zones? Well, I reported from Israel after October 7th. It was in, I think, November 2023. I was in Israel. I was in the kibbutzes. The war, the genocide had just broken out, and Israel was just beginning its assault. So the pounding was heavy and everything. But I wasn't afraid to go. Now, the question now is, will I now be afraid to go because I would like to go and report from Gaza? Should I be afraid for my life that I will be killed by Israel if and when they allow foreign journalists into Gaza? We don't know. But I tell you what it does mean. It means that the insurance will go up now because, you know, when journalists go into war zones, they're covered by insurance and all sorts of things and the training and everything. Israel genociding Palestinian journalists has just made everything that much harder and that much fraught with more danger. So what now, on the point of professionalism, Palestinian journalists are important to report from the ground. International organizations have been using Palestinian journalists in Gaza. Indeed, if not for the brave Palestinian journalists who have been focused and determined to tell us what's going on the ground, we would have all been blindsided. Since October 8th or 9th, we must remember, Israel told us their intention. Israel told the world that it was intending on genociding the Gazans, the Palestinians. The world refused to listen. Indeed, it then becomes incumbent on each Palestinian to grab their phone, grab a camera, grab a pen, grab a paper, type, write, whatever you can do to actually tell the world that what these people said they're going to do, they are doing it, and it is exactly what they're doing. So you see, those Palestinian journalists are our ears and our eyes on the ground.
Ireti, let's leave it there for today and for now. And thanks again for your insights. We appreciate your time again.
Thank you.
Ireti Bakare-Yusuf is a journalist and founder of African Journalists Against Genocide.
Je, una jambo lolote